Hi everyone, this is Maple. Thank you for showing up today, and we have another segment of Leap Forward with Uche. So today I'm excited. We have an amazing guest speaker that's coming out, and she's going to be talking about a lot of great things in terms of entrepreneurship. Her journey from the STEM field, she was in construction, a woman in construction, breaking all barriers, breaking all boundaries, and decided to bet on herself and leap and start her own business. So make sure you like, share, follow us on Leap TV on YouTube, and definitely on LinkedIn at ucheanyemaple.com. We have a lot of amazing events coming up. February 28th, we have a 90-minute workshop that we're going to talk about the resilience factor that you must have in your business, especially right now with all these organizations and companies laying off. People need to know how they can create wealth, create money, and create income using their natural gifts and abilities. And we'll be talking about that on February 28th. More information will come. But until then, everyone, I'm excited. Let's bring up Michele Heyward. Hi.
I'm hearing the applause. You got to hear your own. If nobody got, but you can hear it yourself. That's the best. I was listening to the applause. Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here, Uche.
So I met Michele. Let me give you guys a brief history on how I met Michele. I met Michele in Clubhouse years ago. It's been about 2 years, by the way.
Yeah, it
Yes,
has.
and I met her there, and because both of us were in, I don't know which room we were in, but we were in a room, and we connected. And I was actually on one of your summits or conferences that you had with women in STEM, which was phenomenal. Let me just say that it was groundbreaking, and thank you for allowing me to be there. So I'm just excited that we're able to reconnect because I see you in the wing, breaking things, breaking boundaries, really, being a disruptor, challenging the norms, which is, yeah, especially in the STEM field. And I just love what Positive Hire is doing. And it's just really amazing. And more importantly, I love seeing how your business have grown in the last 2 years. I've been following you, by the way. Listen, success leaves clues, right? So I always love to see how going that journey from an entrepreneur to a small business owner, and I've just seen what you've been doing, and it's been amazing.
Thank you, thank you. And for those of people like, well, how don't you know? You're doing the work, and literally, when you're doing the work, especially if you're analytical, you're data driven, you have a list of things. So like, I'm not meeting my metrics and my KPIs. You ain't paying attention to what people saying. You looking at what you're looking at to measure your level of success. And so people are often thrown back like, well, how did you not see yourself successful? Because we each have different metrics of what success means to us. And so the first thing I'm going to say is figure out what that is. Now, I'm going to go back to your question, which was this is how I do, y'all. I just got off a whole internal call, so I'm like, "Ooh, I'm running late for a meeting. I got to jump off. I got to go here." But anyway, what
I
was
love it. The question was, tell us about yourself, really,
okay?
because yes.
Okay, so literally sitting in my hometown in my mom's living room in rural South Carolina, and so having the opportunities that I've had are really different than what a lot of people like always think of urban areas not having access to different things. But there are also rural areas that do not have access to a lot of resources. We still don't have broadband internet where I live. It stopped the next county over. But what I did have access to was something really different and phenomenal that a lot of people will never really understand the power of. And so I'll name them. Number one, parents who were my mom's a second generation college graduate. My dad is first. So both HBCU graduates, historically black college and universities, one of which is in my hometown. And so as a child, and I literally mean as a child, I could walk to a HBCU campus, right? We would ride our bicycles through the path through the woods, right? I'm in rural South Carolina. Um, and so access to what college was, what it is to see black people in college, it wasn't the show Different World. It was really real life for us because I have two HBCUs here. So it was very normalized to see Black people go to college. It was very normalized to know Black people own businesses because my mom had one in my same hometown for over 30 years. And so there were certain things that were very normal to me that are completely unheard of for a lot of other Black people, Black women. And so I was like, no, no, you can do that. And people like, how do you know? Like, well, I didn't realize how it wasn't normal for many other people. And
Mm.
so that really helped shape and mold my ability and willingness to go out into the world to do what others would consider different or difficult, because so many things that others start were very strange and different, or it was a first time, it had been normalized to me things. And so it was really important for me to understand that I had that privilege that a lot of people don't. But at the same time, my public library wasn't necessarily open all day, so I couldn't go in necessarily but till maybe 5 o'clock certain days of the week. We had three grocery stores, four stoplights. My
Mm.
neighborhood, houses are very, growing up, we're next to each other. We didn't have sidewalks. If you
Mhm.
wanted a street light, you're gonna pay for a street light. But
Mhm.
it was very much normal to have some of the things we would see on TV, but not so normal in other, or it was very rural or small town like to have. And so that was my upbringing. Being able to score very well on math tests, standardized tests, which got me access to summer programs, to take the PSAT in middle school, to see how it, to see if I, become a national scholar. Merit Scholar, didn't know that was a thing. And so my aptitude, even for my small town at the time, was high. And so those were some of the little things. It wasn't coming from, oh, we grew up poor, middle class. That's what my parents were. But it was definitely a story of modest beginnings, but it was also having role models and normalization of what Black greatness is. And I'm cultivated from that. And that really is the core of who I am and how I also see the world.
So thank you for that. But I just got to say this: your skin is flawless. just, I'm just like, it looks amazing.
Y'all don't zoom in. Thank you, Hunty. So what I had done was I got a friend who makes this really great Black soap, and then I used this brand that's not paying me moisturizer, and that's it. That's all I did today.
It looks beautiful. I love your story in terms of growing up in a small community, small town, and really, knowing that that wasn't the norm in terms of your environment, being able to recognize that, but also too, where how did you know that you were going to take these aptitude tests? Like, how did you know that your your geniuses was not the norm?
My little sister's picking at me. Um, so I'm one of five siblings, and I have an older brother and sister, and I have my younger sisters are identical twins. They irk me, but they're the closest to me in age. Our older brother and sister were like will always be in a different school. But for the most part, the three of us were just separated by one grade. And so they will always pick at me like, "Ugh, you and your math, like math is so," like, no, it's not. It's really easy. This is like, you're weird. And so they would pick at me. And so that's how I would do different stuff. And my mom would be like, what is wrong with you? And she would just, like, I'd say my alphabets backwards.
Mhm.
And it was just to challenge myself, like, ew, because I was bored. My little sisters played together. My older brother and sister played together. I'm literally the middle child. What do I do? And so that was interesting in how I just did things differently. And I appreciate that I took the chance and did different things. But I didn't really know that I was gifted until I got into the gifted program in elementary school. And so you get into those programs, and I had access in the 80s to a computer where you had to touch the brick wall to ground yourself. Y'all, if
Mhm.
you know, you know. And so those were indicators that I was smart or gifted, but you still kind of want to be accepted and normal. And so, but being gifted where I am from, it was gifted with other Black kids. It
Mm.
was only other Black kids. So being in that bubble that I grew up in, the normalization of Black nerds or Black smart kids was real for me. And so I love that part of it. So gifted and talented since I was in elementary school. My sisters picking on me because I was smart, and
Mhm.
really just bringing home good grades as well. So those are some of the ways that I knew what I was doing was different or outside of the norm for my area.
Okay. Pay attention. What about who are three people that have influenced you?
Oh man. I would say my mother, of course. So I was fortunate that she started her business when I was like 5 years old.
Mm.
So I literally grew up like everybody talking about an after school job. Like I after school job was going to her job and we worked whatever, however she needed us to do stuff. So I was very that's one of my role models. Her father, who I never got to meet, is another one of my role models. He actually had a construction company, so I'm third generation construction. So people always ask, "How did she get into?" I never tell people. Like I never really thought about it until last year. Like, oh wait, I'm third generation construction. I have one cousin that's a operating engineer. My mom's three brothers all work construction, from road construction to stone masonry to bricklaying, and then my grandfather had his own construction company back up until he died in the 1970s. And so it was that to hear the stories they tell about him and how he built the company and how, as a Black man in South Carolina, he was able to sustain a business in that era and
Mm.
do the things he did. Like he bought 100 acres of land, and those 100 acres of land that he then were, upon his death, given out to his seven children. And so, what does that look like to be able to amass that amount of land in the state of South Carolina as a Black man? It, Jim Crow, civil rights movement. What does that really look like? And so that would be my second role model. My third role model, I don't know if it's one person or if it's a group of women that I've seen over time who have encountered so many different barriers, and they have all said it's not easy. They've all said what has gotten them through is truly community, is truly belief in themselves, and truly understanding that they needed to do it in order to do it for some other people that were going to come behind them. Because the first one to break the glass ceiling is going to get the most cuts, but the glass is going to continue to fall down the ladder, cutting other women until eventually there's no glass left. And so, who are those people that I'm going through the glass ceiling behind while I'm still getting bumps and scrapes and things? They were hit much more hard, they took on a brunt of that force. And so there's so many different people and Black women in that space that I can't name one, but I do thank them continuously for the work they put forth and for the path that they've blazed already.
I love that. Knowing your grandfather's history and knowing what he was able to accomplish with the systematic racism that was existing during that time. Do you think, what is your opinion in terms of right now as African Americans, when we when you hear people say it's too hard, it's too difficult, or I just can't do it. It's all everything is stacked against me. Like when you hear that, what comes to your mind?
I explained this to a few people before during Black Lives Matter movement. I was actually living in St. Louis when Mike Brown was murdered. And what I explained to some people who were not Black was everybody plays a role. And the role you play may not be in the front lines of the march. The role you play may be going to work as a six-figure earner and putting money on the books of the activists that are out there marching, So they come out free. It's covering their hotel room. And so you have to understand what your role is. Your role, you could be tired. Number one, one of the things that I'm pushing and I'm promoting, especially in my community, is resting. How for Black people, African Americans specifically, the normalization of rest. Because as enslaved people, we did not get the opportunity to rest. And how do we normalize that? And so, what I would say is understanding what has been pushed upon us from enslavement, and one of those things is to rest. And so I hear them, and somebody's like, "We're resilient." Like, I'm tired of being resilient. I don't want to be resilient every single day, every hour of the day, every minute. Guess what I'm about to go do? I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go take my nap ministry. What's up? And go rest. And so I hear them, I feel them, I agree with them. Go rest. This particular battle that you're or barrier you're up against may not be yours to deal with. It may be somebody older, somebody next to you, somebody younger. It'll come, it'll pass. Do what works and for you, for your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual well-being, and your financial well-being. That's what I say.
I love that. Okay, that's good. We were talking about this, me and my spouse, in terms of because his mother, my spouse's mother, she was a change agent as well in her community. And, his comment, we were talking about, why what we really don't have an excuse to not be, because of our circumstances, because the ones before us, they still did it in spite of. But he also said, but they were tired.
Very much so.
They were very, very tired. So it is a balancing act to know that you can still persevere and still rest. And we talk about this all the time just because of how slavery was, right? Because we always say that, we think slavery changed our DNA. That's what we would say. It is that, because, now things are coming out about trauma being in our DNA and our cells and all of that stuff, right? And that it may be that because we've been doing it for so long, we just don't know any other way. So we have to like demand ourselves to rest and not to be resilient all the time.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so tell us about Positive Hire.
Woo! So way back when I was a kid again. No, I'm just playing. It was about, oh my God, almost about 10 years ago. I cannot believe, let's not say
It's
that.
been that long?
No, not that I started it. Positive Hire came through an evolution of business ideas. And what happened over that time was, as I was progressing through corporate America in construction, I worked on capital projects. And people like, what is so the smallest dollar value of a project I ever worked on was $350 million. Everything after that was $1 billion. So add $1 billion to that. That was like the largest project. But what I noticed was there were no people that looked like us, whether it was women that were business owners, that were women or Black. And what I wanted to do was change that. And so this idea came about around 2015 or so. Well, you go out with your business idea. I hadn't started a business, but I knew there was a way. There had to be a way to at least start introducing us to, and I focus on women and people of color, engineers. And so I had this idea. It was a brand called Entrepreneur. Somebody else was using it, but I was still kicking it around. They ain't had no trademark on it, but it's going to be Entrepreneurs. The feedback was, I'm struggling in my career. Why would I start a business? And so you got to listen to what the market's telling you. This is 10 years ago, about 10 years ago. I was like, all right, y'all want to do that. And so I was in this mastermind at the time. And one of the other members in the mastermind was like, Michele, they're telling you what they want. They want to be career coach. I'm like, well, I don't want to career coach them. I don't want that. right? And then I started talking to other women in my circle, and I found out that I was doing better in my career than they were in theirs. And I'm, as an engineer, you're trying to like, well, why? Why are you doing? I'm out literally on a construction site. So 12 years I spent in construction. I didn't work in a typical office off and on. When I was in St. Louis, I happened to be in one of our corporate offices. That was for a year, 1 year out of 12 that I sit in a court, and it wasn't even my location. My location that I was tied to by HR and my business unit and my senior director. My job function was in New Jersey.
Oh,
I'm in
wow.
St. Louis. So
Mhm.
it still was, but just think about that. So I'm thinking, y'all in the office, y'all at the water cooler, y'all hanging out, you getting promotion and raises. I'm out here in this doggone dirty white truck in this trailer with a heater under my desk trying to stay warm, with a wool sweater, with a t-shirt, with thermals under it, wearing steel-toed boots. Not knowing that I had more access to executives and direct access to clients, which put me in a better position than those in an office with 600 other employees in a cubicle.
Wow.
And how I had a sponsor, because we always hear mentor. And when I got my first sponsor, I was like, this is that ish they be talking about. And trust me, I had struggled in a couple of my roles in those 12 years. It wasn't like, oh, I was always high flying. I literally struggled. And that's when I got my first sponsor. And that really changed my trajectory and my progress in that organization. And so when I figured out what I had done differently and why I was still had barriers, that's when I was like, you know what? I can do something with this. And so it was 2017, February 2017. I remember this because it was I'd flown out to LA for a virtual live streaming conference. Don't worry about that, y'all. Just roll with me in the story. And I flew back because we had what was called home leave. So if it's 30 days in a month, I got 5 days where I left, the company or the client paid, I could go home, covered by the company. So I flew back, and my project manager comes to me and he goes, the client decided they need to cut the budget, and you're being released from this project March 10th, 9th or 10th, something like that. Now, this is February, so I had like 3-4 weeks that I was no longer going to be on that project. So what happened was I was no longer on that project, packed up everything. I'd already sold my house, and I had a house that I'd owned in the Northeast. I hate the location, so I sold. I wasn't going back. I already taken a hit because I bought my house in 2007. If you know, you know, right? You know, if you know, you know. Um, but having that job, I stayed employed that entire through the Great Recession, and for Black people, that's huge. My parents have 5 kids. I was the only one out of those 5 that did not get laid off.
Wow.
Imagine my parents' stress of looking at your your young adult children getting laid off one by one, and you not just stressing out. But I stayed employed, and I took the hit. I paid my mortgage. I wasn't even living in the house. It was just expensive storage. Come forth. I'm now on what we call standby. I'm drawing unemployment. I'm still an employee of the company, and I'm reading. I'm in that in between place, trying to figure out what's the next step, what's the next thing to do with this idea that's not entrepreneur, but I know it's career coaching, but I don't want a career coach. And I listened to a podcast episode about another startup that's in the same space. And then I read either Entrepreneur Magazine article about, hey, for 30 days, just write down business ideas. And the second or third day, I came with a idea. What if there was a glass door for women of color in STEM? What would that look like? What would be, because we can go to Glassdoor and read the reviews, but I need the review from a Black woman who's middle age, raised in the South, no kids, 2 degrees, high performer. You know what I'm saying? I can't tell which one of those is me. I need to know what the culture of that organ, and plus has my skin tone, right? I can't tell that. And so the first thought and idea for Positive Hire was really a glass door for women of color. And so it was just going, it's this website, y'all, and y'all put in y'all reviews. And somebody's like, oh, that's a tech company. I was like, no, it's just a website. So like, no, it's a tech. I had to call one of my friends, like, yo, this is what I'm trying to build. They keep telling me it's a tech company. He's like, yeah, that's data. I said, okay. He's like, well, tech now is data and how you analyze the data to make predictions and for. I was like, oh, I did that over in construction. I didn't know y'all do this and call it technology now. We do that in Excel. And so it was a learning lesson. And so Positive Hire now has evolved into, and this is the one liner, it's a long one liner, so follow me. Positive Hire connects Black, Latina, and Indigenous women who are experienced scientists, engineers, and technology professionals to management roles. Right now, where we are in the antithesis from 2017, from that initial idea, is we're a data-driven talent marketplace that employers utilize in order to track and retain their underrepresented talent. And because we get lost in it, we can't find Black women in our organization. Like, did you look? Are you tracking their promotion, their career progression, their internal mobility in HR terms, and really being able to understand where to go with that? And so we saw the market change again upon the murder of George Floyd and the pandemic. And so we then pivoted from like a job board or what would I say, women facing type tech to an internal B2B model, more focused to employers inside of their organization. And so what I say to anybody that's doing a business like, oh, I don't want to change, I put it to you this way: people will buy and people won't buy. If they're telling you what they want to pay for, sell it to them. But if you know on the back end what they really need, you can back in what they really need into it. But front facing, you have to sell them what they're willing to pay you for. And then in the back end, you can bring in what they actually need to solve that problem. And that's the other part. Don't be giving them a vitamin when they really need a painkiller, right? And because if it's a vitamin, you're going to take your vitamins at the beginning of the year, but trust me, by May, June, you stop taking your vitamins. But when you get a headache once a week, guess what you're about to do? You're going to find it at stress point. You're going to take, whether you get acupuncture, whether you go take a physical pain pill, you're going to have to relieve it and see really what is driving people to buy that product and or service from you. And product can be software as well, not just a physical product, and really understand that. And I think that's where we are, is leveraging services, whether it's diversity recruitment, people analytics consulting, diversity, equity, and inclusion training, as well as our software, to really help organizations understand you can bring us in, but it takes a whole lot more work to retain us. And that's a huge gap that we've seen, and it's a process, right? There was a great article that came out in Slate last year. I want to say it might have been 2021. And it talks about, from the 1960s, all of these programs that employers created to recruit Black and Hispanic people into tech. They said they did all of these programs. The one thing they did not do was change themselves. You can go buy all the clothes you want to. You can buy the size 6 to size 8 when you're a size 12. But if you don't change yourself, those clothes will never fit, right? And so like, oh, you know what? The pants need to be Black. Okay, they went and dyed them, or they went and got Black. They did everything to make us fit, but they didn't change themselves. And that's really where we're pushing back right now, especially diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging and accessibility, is in the you have to change. It's not me. So the goal is, we always had to fit into whiteness. Nah, boo, that's we built this. the culture comes from us. Why would we try to fit in? Because everything about you shows that we lead the culture, right? But you want to retain the power. And so that's where we are. And that's really where Positive Hire uses data and services to change the workplace dynamics around culture.
Oof. Oof. That is powerful. For those of you who are watching this, and what Michele is talking about right now in terms of us having to assimilate into an environment, and they're creating programs for us, and they don't change the culture. They're expecting us to change within the culture. It is, I'm just emotional right now because of what you're doing. And oof, I wish this was there when I got into engineering years ago. So many people's lives wouldn't change, and so many people would not have changed their profession because of that, right? I mean, people go to school for years,
Yes.
and if when they get into an environment that is not accommodating, they go and completely change careers and
Yes.
just say, forget it. So
Yeah.
I love that. We're going to talk more after this, but I love what
I
you're
want to
doing.
add something to what you said. We see a lot of advocacy and work done in the K through 12 as it relates to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And the issue is there are issues there as well, especially in the U.S. education system and access to resources. Where we see the smallest amount of work being done is for women who are already in the workplace that are mid-career and they leave.
Oh,
And what people don't realize is, oh, well, you're 10 years in, we still will leave. And that is a lot of education and experience and role models, because when we leave at that level, women who are earlier in the career, like, well, shoot, if she left, why am I still here? And then it rolls back all the way into college. Like, how did it roll? Because they're doing internships and co-ops. And that rolls back into K through 12. And so if you start, because people often say, well, you're there. Why don't you work with kids? Because your kids need us to be there.
you listen.
So
I'm a living testimony. I left my company in 2015 and left for a couple of years. Came back. They recruited me back. Not only did I find out that when I left, 5 other African American women left too, because they was like, we thought she was kicking butt.
Yep.
And they were like, we left too. And I had no idea. So the ripple effect is there because you never know who's watching. All right. Before we go off, what is coming up and how can people find you, Michele? What is something that you want people to know that you have coming up?
So coming up is our annual Women of Color in STEM virtual summit. We've been running it since 2017. Everybody else is new to this. We've been true to this. This year, we're focusing on the glass cliff. And so I talked about the glass ceiling, but not the glass cliff. And so what we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years since the murder of George Floyd is a lot of women, especially Black and Hispanic women, get promotions. Oftentimes they've been doing the work anyway. They haven't been getting the promotions. But the glass cliff is a phenomenon wherein people of color and women doing crisis mode, I don't know, like a pandemic, social justice change, a recession, they're often promoted to management roles, executive roles, political positions, because it's high stress and it's a high risk of failure. And we are positioning women for success by taking these glass cliff roles. We feel that you should take it, but we want to help you succeed. Even if you fail at the role, or if you succeed at the role, what does that look like? And really, we're spending from February 19th to February 24th discussing the glass cliff, and I added on an extra day on the Friday the 24th to talk about entrepreneurship, right? Because that I keep getting these questions. Like Uche, you get these questions like, how do you start a business? How do you escape the corporate jungle? And so we're really focused on the glass cliff and how do you utilize these high risk roles for your career trajectory. And so not just running from them, but really being able to identify them, how to position yourself for success. So we're literally spending a week. There are 4 amazing speakers joining me out of HR, out of diversity, equity, inclusion, out of software engineering, out of engineering design, a civil engineer who's a licensed professional engineer from the Dominican Republic here, but she's here in the US. So you really want to come and join us because it's so much that is going to be shared. And guess what? You can get it for free. So
What's the site? What's the site?
so you want to go, I'll give you the short link is bit.ly, bit.ly,
Mhm.
glass cliff summit. I made it real easy.
I love that. Thank you for that. I love that you're doing this. I have been in a couple of glass cliff roles, and having that support is is required from people who know how to help. People that look like you. Let me just say that.
Exactly.
That makes a huge difference. Anything else that you would like to leave our audience before?
Oh. You don't have to go it alone. There
Mm,
are communities, whether it's the community I've built and continue to build over at Positive Hire. If you're on Twitter, there are also communities on Twitter. It is very, very important that you have a community of people in your space, in your industry, that you have community within your home and your local community because they all bring something different. That'd be the first thing I say. The next thing I would say, it is okay for you to all have your groceries because we didn't normalize this until the pandemic. Having other people clean your house, do your laundry, normalize, and the money, if you can afford to have other people do these things from you. So you can go take your nap, so you can go rest, so you don't have to be resilient all the time. Normalize that. And last thing is go talk to a professional, somebody that is unbiased, somebody that looks like you. So you want to go to the websites like Women of Color Therapists, I think it is, and to find a therapist that resonates with you racially, gender wise, social, economic, internationally, ethnically, that can understand your community. And you want to do this whether it's your medical doctor, your financial services professionals, they understand your community and why you do that. I got access to a financial professional for free who told me I needed to stop supporting my family financially because she didn't understand things culturally. Both American, I was just a black one. And you have to have these people that understand culturally the things you go through, even if they're not from small rural South Carolina, but they understand the things you may encounter as a Black woman, as a Latina, as a first generation multilingual. And it's really, really important that you have these people as well within your circle for professional help.
love that. Thank you. So you see the link on here, everyone. bit.ly Glass Cliff Summit. Make sure you go and register. As Michele said, that it is free. There's an opportunity. I think you do have an opportunity where is it VIP, Michele, at all? Or
Yeah, so you can get the replay right now. I think the early bird is still up where you can get the replay for a year for $37. It's going to jump. If it's not the end of this week, it will be next week. I'm pretty sure it's the end of this week. It's 2 days. We have 2 days left. The early bird tickets, if you want a recording for the summit for a year, is $37. It's going to jump to $67, and then after that it'll be 127. So if you want the replays, but I have some other great things coming out where we're launching our paid community as well. So but come join the summit, come learn about me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of stuff over on LinkedIn, and so you'll be able to find me at Michele C. Heyward, or you type Michele Heyward, you'll see my picture with my big fro, you'll know it's me. And definitely come connect with me.
Okay. Everyone, thank you for coming. Michele, thank you for honoring us with your presence and all of the amazing knowledge that you have provided. And for everyone else, make sure you let us know that you're watching replay, and make sure you tag myself and Michele. And any comments that you have, we'll definitely be sure to reach out to you. And I will also post a link in the description of where you can find Michele and the link for her event. All right, everyone, have a great day. See you soon.